Did you expect to do as well as you did in 2003? Like you really emerged, in my opinion, there.
It's the one thing that I think that we commonly have in, that we all have in common is that, like, and what makes me favorite about, my favorite era,
Yeah.
yourself and James, and is
Yeah.
that I just think individually we all just wanted to race and you wanted to succeed. And it wasn't like, at least for me, like it wasn't record books, it wasn't anything. It was just like, you were living so in that moment and chasing that goal that weekend. And you kind of lived and died by that sword. And I think that sometimes I fell to the sword. Sometimes I learned, and I learned a lot, especially in '03, like the year you're talking about. I obviously witnessed and I watched 2002. I was an East Coast rider. I jumped in and out of a couple of West Coast 250 Supercross back then. That was the premier class. Um, I think I got a couple of fourths. You crashed at the first one,
Yep.
and so I kind of knew, like I felt the temperature, right? Like I kind of was like, you know what, I got this. I think I can do it. You went 24-0 in motocross in '02, and I just remember watching it still to this day, just thinking, God, all these fools let this guy win every race. Um, Never did I think that I was going to be a part of, the '04, 24-0 that you went and did. And it's still today, I'm embarrassed to say that, like, I let you win every race. But I just remember being that typical, just cocky kid, like, dude, these guys suck, like they're just letting this guy win every race. You came back from a big deficit on points in Supercross. And so I kind of just was a big sponge, like I wouldn't say I was old, but I was older. Like I obviously had to make the transition from Australia to Europe. I think I was more mature than my age. I had to be, like I always had to grow up. I always had to race. I was raced in Indonesia a bunch since I was 11 years old. You don't want to go to Indonesia, an Indonesian hospital. So I kind of learned to be clever and smart and kind of ride within my limits early on. Didn't have parents around a lot at some of those races, and so I don't know, there was just something in the back that always kind of was just like, just do what you got to do. But like sometimes the goal was finishing the weekend than not. And so basically after 2002, that whole off season, the only guy that I felt could beat you that year was Villeman, like you said. In the data that I had to go off of looked pretty good, like he was the guy that, threatened. But
Yep.
then being young and dumb, I also was like, dude, Ricky still smoked him. So then you kind of always like, there was always this ghost. And I really think that that's something that separates maybe us. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but it separates the good from, well, maybe the greats. I don't like putting you're the great, right? Like you're the goat. I don't like putting yourself in the goat great conversation. I think, but I raced a lot of great people, and I was always able to be amongst that conversation, and so I feel,
Damn right.
yeah. So
You
I
were.
always seen that Villeman was close, and I was kind of handling him. I was faster than him. I was able to beat him in some of those off-season races, and so I was like, okay, this is it. Like maybe I can do it, and
Yeah.
everything aligned in 2003, and I was able to, kind of get a whole shot almost and run away with Anaheim 1. They don't tell you what comes after that, but because the first one's always the easiest. Like I can
Yeah.
honestly say through my whole career, I don't know that there was an easier Supercross win than my first one. Everything after that seemed like it was an uphill battle. Like it was always much more difficult than the first one.
I don't know, dude. You had sitting on the bench in '04, you looked like there was you had a good time, and there was some relatively easy wins in '04. But that I always was curious of that. That was a great story, and like, yeah, without a doubt, And I tell people, and I don't even know if I've told you this, but yeah, you definitely, not in a disrespectful way, but I just thought that you had growing to do, like you're going to go through the typical growing pains that a lot of rookies do. And I think going back, now that you said this, and I agree with you, I think your worldly experience really helped you and fast tracked that, that process that a lot of these young kids come up and go into the premier class that they struggle with, and I feel like, part of that again is your worldly experience, because you had been there, done that, you played the long game. And as you know, more than anyone in the premier class, that's half the battle, is playing the long game. It's not all about being piss and vinegar and being the fastest guy. So
No, it wasn't. And and to your credit, I learned so much from you because you held me at such a high level. Like my rookie season rivals any good rookie season, and any other era, I'm a champion in my rookie season.
yeah,
But like I mean, what we had 16 races, I think that year. Back then
yeah,
it was 16, and I finished two times off the podium, and both of those times off the podium I was P6, and I won, and I lost the title to you at 7 points. I
yeah,
mean, if I only give up one P6 to you and I finish second, I
yeah,
do the math and it's in my favor, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I learned the hard way, and I was always appreciative of that. Like I always, as much as it sucked to lose the title or whatever, but like now, like your intro, us being friends and not
yeah,
necessarily competitors, it's just like I'm always so proud of the era and the people that I got to race, because uh, they taught me to be better as a rider,
yeah,
as a person,
mhm,
to deal with stuff, to get over it. I didn't
yeah,
always get over it quickly, but you had to get over
yeah,
it as quick as you could. And yeah, no,
yeah.
it's crazy that we're talking about 2003 and it's over
It's
20
it,
years
it
ago.
was it was dude, it was for me, I mean, and this is massive props to you, and thank you for the kind words, dude. I mean, you and I've, everyone tuned in, and that is either watching this on the audio vision, or watching it or listening on the audio version. Like Chad and I have had multiple conversations of the amount of respect that we have for each other and how we pushed each other and all that. And it just, I appreciate all the props, but like you are hands down probably the toughest competitor that I raced against. And before we get into the rest of the good stuff, we're gonna roll out all the good right off here, off the top of the show. But I think that it just, you were so tough. You never gave up. You're one of the mentally toughest riders that I've ever faced. Just because, I mean, the times that you didn't win, you always would come back. Or when we were in a close championship battle, you'd always come back. And I always tell people, like, dude, if I always knew, like, if I gave you an inch, you were going to take a mile. And like, you were just so good at turning lemons into lemonades. And it would piss me off. But at the same time, you held me accountable, and you made me appreciate what I had accomplished and what I was able to do, because you were so tough. And I could tell how hard that you worked. And I told your dad this one time, like, dude, you raised a damn a warrior. This guy never gives up.
Hi, folks. Lee Diffie from NBC Sports here. If you truly enjoyed what you just watched, you can get more news, interviews, and highlights by subscribing to the Motorsports on NBC YouTube page. You can get it all, so go for it.